Hey everyone, I just want to give a shout out to you guys. You guys are the sponsors to the channel. I mean, all of you who like the videos, watch them, leave comments and stuff. I appreciate the hell out of you guys. You are what make this possible and worth doing. You know, all the time you guys are leaving comments and sending me messages of how these videos help you, and it's awesome. That's what makes this all worth it. I'd love to do this full time one day if YouTube finally starts paying me enough. But in the meantime, the love and support is getting me through and keeping this channel going. That being said, we are selling shirts, so stay tuned for that information. But I just wanted to thank you all. You know, we're not really going to get any sponsors. I'm going to do my best to keep you guys from having to listen to any of that nonsense, you know, 3 minutes of shouting out a sponsor. It just takes away from the video. It pulls you out of what you're there for. So we're going to do our best to keep sponsors either non-existent or to the absolute bare minimum. I do have a good relationship with Sal at S&P Auto, so he'll help out with the Swallowtail and any other projects we get ourselves in. Window fell off the regulator on the driver's side door on the silver car, so we're fixing that now. This video is kind of just showing you how to remove the door panels on a Mark 1 and also one of the possible problems that you may encounter with the window itself.
Who's there? Connecting rod.
That's good. Hey guys, it's me from the future. Finished the job already, great success, except for one pretty stupid screw up, which you'll see at the very end of the video. But one thing I forgot to talk about going into the job and filming this all, these seals, all three of them have to come out. This upper one can stay in on the top edge here, but you do have to peel it back and to get the glass out of the door. What I wanted to talk more in depth about was be careful when you peel these out. These are all in great shape, but you can still see how my outer scraper here is dry rotted and starting to crack, and a couple pieces broke off as I was taking them on and off. And you can even see here I got to pop this back out and bend it back a bit better to get the fit. I'll probably try to find a brand new one of these since this one's starting to let go. And as these start to fail and get old, more water drips in, and the problem that we're fixing just speeds up and gets worse. So these cars are loud enough on their own, so if you have roached seals and scrapers and stuff, change them out. It'll help with the wind noise, it'll help with the draft. It helps keep water out of your actual door skins themselves and keeps them from rotting out from the inside out. So it's very important to have good, healthy rubbers and seals for more than one reason aside from just comfort and looks. Before you dive into this, it's not a bad idea to check yours over and get yourself some better condition ones or brand new if you could find them. I haven't even begun looking into where to get them new. If I do find any links, I'll be sure to include any links for any parts that we're talking about in the description below. At the very least, be very careful when you take these off, because if they're on their way out or even if they're in decent condition like mine are, they're still prone to damage and cracking and falling apart, and you want to avoid that when you're putting this stuff back together. Obviously, most of us want to try to reuse as many parts as possible. More than likely, there's a little kind of clip that clamps onto the window, and that's what holds the window to the regulator. But we'll get there once we get the door panel off and actually dig into fixing that. We'll also talk about some other things that you may want to tackle while you're in there, and how to maintain the regulator. If you have windows that are tough to go up and down and you keep snapping window cranks, it's not because the window cranks are shit. It's because you need to lubricate your window track. So we'll go over that when we tear this open. Mine are fine. We probably won't touch them, but we'll at least point out to you how the mechanism works and what goes bad with them. So this process is the same for all Mark 1s as far as I know in terms of getting the door card off. It's very simple and it's kind of self-explanatory, but if some of you people who aren't as comfortable working on stuff might be a little daunted by the task if you're taking this on. You know, this might be one of the first times you're taking your Mark 1 apart, so it's a little daunting, so we'll go over it. Should be the same for all Rabbits. My sport truck did have Phillips head screws along the bottom. I don't know if that's standard on the late Westie cars, but that was my experience on that. I do know that they still have a couple of the plastic clips like what we're going to encounter here. So in terms of tools, you're going to want a Phillips head, a flathead at the least. I do not have a panel popper, which is what I would recommend for prying these off. We're going to be real careful and just use a flathead because I don't know where my panel popper is. And basically what that is just a sort of mini flat crowbar shaped looking. In some cases they're shaped just like a crowbar, you know, they got a good angled flat wedge, and it's made out of plastic, so you cause minimal damage while prying between these panels. So first things first, you're basically going to take off whatever's on the door card on the outside. On the late Westies, you have a bigger arm rest here, or no, it angles up in that way. So it's the same thing. There's some Phillips head screws in here, and then you've got the door handle itself, the latch. There's a little slot on the side there, you'll see. Pop that cover off. Then behind that, you've got a Phillips head screw. So you've got that little screw and that kind of weird looking lock nut washer, locking washer, whatever you want to call that. You're going to want to make sure that that goes back on, because otherwise this will start to loosen up on you. And that's that for the door handle. If you have a mirror up here, we've just got a plug here where the mirror adjustment knob would be. So that just pops right out for us. But some of the nicer and newer models have a remote adjuster right here. And I forget exactly how the sport trucks were, but I believe it was a collar that just spun off, and then the remote adjuster itself just stayed attached to the door skin. You might not have to worry about that at all. And then you've got the window crank. Now you want to be careful, especially if you have the plastic intact, and pry that off and just get it barely out of the way. You really don't want to muscle this because these will crack. And that's the biggest thing to worry about when you're working on this. My stuff is all in nice shape, nothing's too dry, still has plenty of give. So it's not as bad here, but in most cases, these plastic covers are all dry rotted from sun exposure and old age. So definitely be careful when you're messing with those. The crank itself is just a simple Phillips head. It's a bit hard to film with one hand, but behind that Phillips head is supposed to be this kind of star shaped pointy edge locking washer type thing. And mine is missing. Every few drives I've got to tighten my window crank up because it slowly loosens itself. So definitely don't lose that washer. And then on the back side of the window crank itself is this sort of plastic spacer, bushing, whatever you want to call it, also important. So that's our armrest / door pull handle. 2 Phillips head screws there. And there's 2 rubber foam bushing washer type things on the back side there. Okay, so now that we've got all the parts on the outside of the door card removed, we want to go in with our flathead or panel popper like you should have, and basically work in at the top corner here, and you'll pop off that first plug. You want to get right up as close to it as you can, and so you get good leverage on it. You're not bending the door card itself by prying up here. So you want to reach in there and find that plug and pop it off from there. I need my other hand to do the rest of this because I'm basically going to peel back and with one hand while I pop the plugs out with the screwdriver and work my way around. This door card is just made out of like a compressed cardboard wood type of material. It's almost like a heavier type of poster board. So this stuff is prone to bending and cracking and damage. You really don't want to pry away from the door too hard with it because you will ruin it and crease it, and it'll look like garbage moving forward. So now next up, we've got the membrane for the door. This is basically a vapor gasket, helps keep moisture out, keeps the draft out of the car, helps insulate the car. If you're feeling a heavy draft through your doors, chances are your membrane's gone. Not a bad idea to get in here and check. You could take care of a couple things while you're in here. You could replace this. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to use to replace this yet, because I've never looked into it. So that's all gone. I mean, you can kind of cut it and tape it back together and salvage it if you're trying to be not too invasive with how you're working, but just rip it off, replace it. I don't quite know exactly what's going to go on here. I remember seeing some videos talking about it and seeing some other friends post about what they used. So I'll leave something in the description showing what the eventual solution was, because I'm just gonna fix the window, which we'll get into in a second. Gonna fix the window and then slap it back together and redo the membrane on another day, because I'm running out of daylight here. I just don't have time to do this all right now. Wait for parts, wait for material to come to do it. I know I could do something ghetto, but I want to see what the best solution is that's going to last and be proper for this. So this clamp here at the bottom of the glass itself is rubber lined, and that's what holds your actual window, and it attaches here, or it's supposed to attach here. That part rots out, water gets in here, moisture gets in here, and it drains right out. But this is overall, water does tend to get in here, and unfortunately this piece of metal is just too thin and light duty. Can also replace just this clamp piece, knock the old clamp off the window, pull it off. I don't know what the correct term is, so sorry for calling it a clamp if it's not called a clamp, but for all intents and purposes it clamps the glass to the window regulator. So you can replace just that clamp piece if you pull this piece off. We'll go over a maintenance item with the regulator itself, aside from checking and seeing if this is about to let go and rot. We'll get a better look once we pull this all out, both the problem and how to maintain these regulators like you should be doing. If you're dealing with a tough window crank, it's really tough to roll your window up and you keep snapping window cranks. Again, it's not because the window crank is garbage, it's because your window regulator is dry, needs to be clean and or lubed. So we've got one bolt here that goes right there. You've got two bolts there near the crank itself that go right there. And then you've got one more bolt on the bottom of the door going upwards into the bottom of the regulator right here. Have a second hand help you, but with good healthy weather seals like this car has, you can just shove the window up all the way and this stuff will clamp it into place just fine. If your stuff is tired or missing, you're going to need a second set of hands or a way to prop the glass up to give you room. Window regulator out, you should have already had your two window scrapers out, which are the two seals on the bottom. Same thing, just like the door card, pick an edge, get a flathead screwdriver to help you start to lift an edge, and then the rest of it will peel out. Be careful. These are metal lined. They've got metal structure to them. So as you can see, when you bend them, they hold that bend. And if you bend them too much, they're a real pain to get straight again and working as they should. So get your scrapers out. You've got your front seal right here, which lines the inside of that. I'm sorry that we don't have the camera strapped to my head and talking you guys through this as we're physically doing it. My GoPro batteries are dead. I didn't realize I was going to film all this. This is what you get. This seal you can start to peel out. You don't have to take it all the way out. So once everything's out, you got all your seals and stuff out, you can start raising your window. And as you start to raise it, you want to get it on the inside edge of the door here, and you'll kind of see it will start to come right out on the inside of the door there. And voila, you've got your glass out of the door. As you can see, water drips down the glass, sits in this little U-shaped clamp piece, and then it slowly starts to rot away at this cheap, flimsy, thin metal. I don't know if necessarily cheap, low quality metal back then. We're talking 40 something years ago, so they just don't always stand the test of time. You'll see all the time people have these window regulators snap. So we're gonna go ahead and clean this up the best we can, and we're just gonna weld it back together. I know the proper thing is to replace this with brand new or like new parts, or at least just parts that aren't corroded like this, but we'll be able to get this thing back together tonight, and we'll probably last plenty long till I come across a good condition regulator secondhand. We're probably going to skip out on filming putting this back together because same process as removal in reverse. In here is kind of a braided cable, flexible cable, because it goes up and down. This raises and lowers the window. There's little brushes and bristles. It's kind of hard to see on camera here, but there's little bristles in there too to kind of help keep some dirt out. But over time, this all gets crumbed up and all nasty, and you either have to get in there and clean it and lube it, or just give it some fresh lube while this is apart. We'll spray a little bit of lube in here, but these regulators already move smooth as butter, so So there you have it, folks. There was enough good metal on this side where I was kind of able to just weld it back together without having to add any extra material. On the back side, though, I couldn't quite reach in where it had snapped off, and just kind of wanted to add another piece of material here to bridge the gap. And here's a little contest for you guys. I'll give $5 to the first person who could guess what I shoved in there and melted to fill the gap. Yeah, kind of funny. Anybody who catches that, I don't know why. It was the first thing I spotted in my junk drawer full of loose bolts, random odds and ends, and it fit perfect. And it stuck. So this is not permanent by any means. This will get us through the season. Honestly, this will probably last a few years before it breaks again. But we'll find a new regulator and replace this within, the next year or two. But this will get us back together, driving back to work tomorrow. Two important things to note. There's a felt cube inside here on the other side of this area, and it's stuck in place. It's what the window rides on and rests against when it's all the way down. If you grab any window, mark one window, it's going to wiggle a little bit just because of the mechanism, how it's attached. It's on that cable inside the tube, and for the regulator, it just has a little bit of give to it. So naturally, you're going to get the window moving. If you don't have that cube there, the glass will bounce off of the backside of the door here. So something good to know, if you have a window that's rattling around too much, chances are that little felt cube fell off, as mine did. You could kind of reach it with the glass in, but I forgot about it until after. So I kind of just had to squeeze up in there. There's enough room to snake your arm up and get it on there. I just used some super glue to get it back on there, and it stuck real nice. So that's good to go. But more importantly, don't forget to cover glass when you're welding near it. The right thing to do is to take that clamp off the glass, weld it away from the glass. In my case, I brought my moving blanket over to cover it and protect it. But like an idiot, totally forgot to cover the glass when I was welding. And now there's these little pits all over it. So this glass is ruined. I already knew better. I even had the glass laid out on the moving blanket so I could cover it right as I went to weld. So we'll have to take this glass out and replace it anyways.